In his book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, Joseph Pieper denounces the reversal of perspective inherent to the total work world born of the democratic spirit. In introducing this book, Roger Scruton gives a powerful form to this accusation. He says, the frenzied need to work, plan, change things is nothing but idleness. That's a total reversal of conception. Normally, work is automatically seen as useful. Always it is on leisure that bears the burden of proof, because leisure is assimilated to idleness, and idleness, it is said, is the mother of all vices. Leisure must therefore exonerate itself of all evils. Scruton says, leisure has bad press. For the Puritan, it is the source of vice. For the egalitarian, a sign of undue privilege. The Marxist regards it as an unjust surplus. So, everyone from the prime minister to the door-to-door beggar justifies their occupation by protesting that they work, and heavily. Now, Pieper insists, work easily becomes idleness, and only leisure can preserve it of that. Work is a means. As such, only its end can justify it. But the end of work is leisure. Wrongly, says Pieper, leisure is mistaken for idleness and work for creativity. Certainly, work can be creative, but only when leisure gives it meaning. In short, living is leisuring. If it does not lead to leisure, work remains insignificant, a means for a means for a means endlessly. Leisure is not cessation of activity, but activity of another kind, restored in its human sense. Activism threatens always, but the modern democratic spirit almost inevitably sinks into it, since it wants to make everyone a worker to realize its ideal of equality. On the contrary, antiquity and the Middle Ages associated idleness more with activism than with inaction. They perceived in those who cannot stop working and acting a dementia that prevents them from aiming for a definite good. The etymology goes in the same direction and is instructive here. Idle in Old English as oiseux in the 12th century French first denounced objects, words, actions as vain, unuseful. This accusation did not reproach the action for its absence, but for its emptiness, its vanity, its uselessness. In other words, its inability to achieve a good end. In correlation, idleness as oisiveté qualified the fact of acting in vain. It is mainly activism that is thus highlighted. This fact of acting even a lot, but without taking the time or the trouble, without even being able to give oneself this trouble, to give oneself a dignified end, and to adapt one's action to this end in an appropriate way. Think to this very busy doing nothing Thessalonist denounced by St. Paul. Only afterwards has idleness signified inaction and laziness, since they too, despite their contrary nature, are empty, vain, useless as to achieving a good end. The expression mother of all vices thus acquires a different tone. It is not only, or even especially, inaction that breeds vices, but more precisely the inability to leisure, the inability to free up time to reflect, to think about what one is doing so as to foresee the result, to direct one's action towards a legitimate end. One is less surprised to see the frantic work associated with idleness when one thus realizes that, far from being synonymous with leisure, idleness opposes it to the point that it finds its cause in the lack of leisure. Idleness, before qualifying a situation of inaction, constitutes a mental disposition allergic to leisure, an incapacity to enter it.